I was 63 on the day it happened, my birthday. And all because of a dish of creamy mushroom casserole. I was thrown out of my own son's house by his wife. My son stood there watching coldly from the side, never saying a word. I clung to the doorframe with everything I had, refusing to let go. Carrie, it's freezing outside. Are you really going to throw me out like this? The only answer I got was the deafening slam of the door and the wind slicing through the hallway like a blade. At exactly 7 o'clock that evening, Carrie and Lynn walked in, laughing and chatting like nothing had happened. I greeted them with a smile. Lynn glanced at the dining table but said nothing. I let out a quiet breath of relief and slipped into the kitchen to get the utensils. Then out of nowhere her voice exploded across the dining room. What is this? Her tone turned sharp and shrill as she pointed at a baking dish tucked into the corner of the table. Didn't I tell you I'm allergic to mushrooms? Are you seriously testing me again? I froze. I didn't even dare to look up. Her face twisted with disgust and she kept stabbing her finger toward the dish, her voice icy and cutting. The first time I learned about her mushroom allergy was right after she gave birth to Jason. I'd made her a mushroom casserole. She didn't say a word all evening, then broke down in tears, accusing me of trying to belittle her on purpose. No matter how many times I explained, she wouldn't listen. Carrie ended up yelling at me, calling me clueless and manipulative. To put out that fire, I gave her a third of my savings to buy a diamond necklace. That was the only way to resolve it. Since then, not a single mushroom has shown up on our dinner table. But today was my 60th birthday. I just missed that familiar flavor. I walked past the hot food section at the supermarket 3 times before finally picking out the smallest tray they had. It was my birthday after all. I thought maybe, for once, I could be a little selfish. Just a small dish. Just for me. Besides that, I also made Carrie's favorite roast beef, Lynn's favorite pan-seared cod, and Jason's favorite honey-glazed wings. I placed the mushroom casserole in the farthest corner of the table, where it looked more like leftover scraps than an actual dish. But she spotted it anyway. My throat tightened. I lowered my head and said nothing. My silence only seemed to fuel her rage. She burst again, louder this time. Say something. Who are you playing the victim for this time? Her manicured fingernail was inches from my face. I instinctively leaned back and shot a glance at Carrie, silently begging him to speak up. But he just kept watching TV, pretending none of this was happening. I sighed and opened my mouth to explain. Before I could get a word out, Lynn grabbed my arm and started dragging me toward the door. You're trying to make me look bad again? I've had it with your little act. Out. Get out before I lose my temper even more. She was tall and heavy-set, pulling me along like I was a grocery bag. In 3 strides I was at the door. I stumbled. One of my shoes slipped off. I gripped the door frame with all my strength and begged. Carrie, I didn't mean to. I just wanted on my birthday. Before I could finish, the door slammed shut. I stood outside, my cheek pressed against the cold metal, finishing the sentence in my head. Just wanted to taste a bite of creamy mushroom casserole. I don't know how long I sat there before a familiar voice broke the silence. Grandma? What are you doing on the stairs? I looked up. Jason was standing a few steps up, staring at me in disbelief. My voice caught in my throat. Jason, you're back? He nodded, then walked over and knocked on the door. Lynn answered immediately, her face lighting up. She pulled Jason inside, fawning all over him, asking if he'd lost weight, if he was eating enough. The two of them laughed as they walked into the house. I followed quietly, doing my best not to make a sound. As I crossed the threshold into the living room, I let out a faint sigh of relief. But the next moment, Lynn extended her arm and blocked me. Her voice was razor sharp. Did I say you could come in? She sneered at me. What's the matter? Don't understand plain English. She'd been saying that same line for years. Anytime something didn't go her way, she'd throw it in my face. Whether I explained or stayed silent, she'd shout it just the same. She was a walking powder keg, ready to explode with the slightest spark. The only one who could calm her down even a little was Jason. I looked at him, pleading with my eyes. I raised him practically by myself. But he just shrugged and gave me an apologetic smile like a bystander. Then he disappeared into his room. Something inside me sank. So I didn't back away. I clenched my teeth and stepped forward. Even if she yelled, even if she hit me, I just needed to get inside. That step seemed to push her over the edge. She completely lost control and shoved me hard, screaming, "Are you deaf?" I said, "Get the hell out." I held onto the doorframe so tightly my knuckles turned white. I turned to my son, my last hope, and said, "Carrie, it's freezing out. Are you really going to throw me out like this?" He walked over, rubbing his temples like I was a nuisance. For a moment I felt a flicker of hope. But then he calmly pulled Lynn aside, gave me a gentle push toward the door, and slammed it shut behind me. I stood there, stunned, unable to say a word. He came back a few minutes later and led me to the end of the hallway, scolding me under his breath. "Mom, what are you doing? You know Lynn's allergic to mushrooms. Why would you make that?" I twisted my fingers, whispering, "It was just for me. Today's my birthday." He cut me off, agitated. Yeah, but could you not rub it in her face? Did you really have to eat it in front of her?" Then he pulled out his wallet and handed me a few bills. "Here, go stay somewhere for a couple nights. I'll bring you back once she cools down." I didn't take them. Where was I supposed to go at 10 at night? The streets were pitch black, lit only by headlights and the wind. Seeing me hesitate, he sighed and shoved 2 more bills into my hand. "500 should be enough, right? You still have cash, don't you? I gave you 400 just last month for groceries." I still didn't move. I just stared at him. That 400? It was supposed to feed all of us for an entire month. And more than that, this wasn't about the money. He never noticed I was still barefoot. The night wind cut straight through the hallway tiles, stabbing into the soles of my feet and sending shivers up my spine. The door creaked open again. Lynn stepped out, her face like thunder, dragging a bulging blue suitcase behind her. She hurled it at me like it was garbage. "Take your crap and get lost," she snapped, jerking her chin like she was tossing out the trash. Then she turned and shot Carrie a glare sharp enough to slice through steel. "You're just gonna stand there? Or are you planning to go with her?" Carrie looked at me. Then he looked at her. He clenched his jaw and turned on his heel, disappearing back inside. I sank down beside the crumpled suitcase, sitting blankly on the edge of the sidewalk. The streets hadn't fully quieted. Cars still passed. Strangers hurried by, none of them noticing the woman trembling on the curb. The year Carrie got married, his father and I scraped together everything we had to help with the down payment on their house. After his father died, Carrie asked me to move in with them. First I said no. Jason had started boarding school, he didn't need rides anymore. Lynn, while polite on the surface, always carried a quiet disapproval of me. I didn't want to wedge myself into their little family unit. Children grow up. They should build their own lives. That was something I'd always believed. But less than a year later, Lynn found a lovely house in a prime neighborhood. The only problem? They didn't have the cash. So they started working on me. They convinced me to sell the little house I lived in and combine it with what little my late husband left behind, just enough to help them cover the down payment. I hesitated. That old house wasn't much, but it was my only safe harbor. I still remembered what my husband said, gripping my hand on his deathbed. "Linda, whatever you decide, keep that house. Once I'm gone, there's no one left to look out for you. You'll have to protect yourself." But then Jason wrapped his little arms around me and said, "Grandma, I want to live in a big house. This one's too small." Lynn chimed in, "Mom, you'll love this place. It's got a huge yard, perfect for planting all your favorite herbs." Carrie added, "Dad's gone. I worry about you being alone. We'll all be together. It'll be cozy, full of life. That's how it should be." 3 expectant faces looked at me and my heart softened. I gave in. Carrie was so excited he spun me around in circles like a little kid. And at first it did feel like a dream. The house was spacious, the yard wide and open. Only, that yard wasn't for growing herbs. Lynn set up a wooden platform and tossed on a thin pad. "Budget's tight," she sighed. "We could only do 2 bedrooms for now. Mom, just hang in there, sleep out on the terrace for a bit." Carrie stood there saying nothing. Later, the renovations were completed. One room became Jason's study. Kids need a space to focus. The other? Lynn's walk-in closet. She's dreamed of this since she was a girl. In that entire house there wasn't even a corner for me. I stared at Carrie, lost. He mumbled, "Mom, just wait till Jason goes off to college. We'll give you his room then." But by that point, what choice did I have? I stayed. That night, close to midnight, I tried calling Carrie. He didn't answer. I called again. And again. Finally, his voicemail kicked in. I can't come to the phone right now. Please leave a message. I let out a hollow laugh. What was I still hoping for? The wind slapped my face like tiny knives. I pulled my coat tighter and started walking toward a rundown motel at the corner. At the front desk, a young woman was stifling a yawn as she checked me in. Just as I was about to head upstairs, she called out to me and held out a small box with a strawberry shortcake inside. Her voice was soft, a little shy. "Ma'am, happy birthday." My throat tightened. I whispered a thank you, and the tears I'd held back all night finally broke loose. A stranger remembered my birthday. But my own son, on this day, had thrown me out of his house right alongside his wife. Honestly, even a stray dog would have been treated better. The next morning, after checking out of the motel, I couldn't help myself. I wandered back to that all-too-familiar neighborhood. From a distance, I saw Lynn at the entrance, holding on to her parents as they walked inside. Carrie stood beside them, smiling like the perfect son-in-law. I hesitated, unsure if I should go over and say hello. He spotted me immediately. After whispering something to Lynn, he hurried toward me. My eyes burned. My voice came out cracked and weak. "Carrie." But before I could say anything more, he grabbed my arm and pulled me into a corner, his voice sharp and hushed. "Mom, what are you doing here? I told you, find a place to stay for a few days. It's only been one night." The first words out of his mouth were complaints. Not a single question about where I'd slept, whether I'd eaten. Not even a mention of my birthday yesterday. I stared at him, the warmth draining from my gaze. "She's bringing her parents to live here too?" He looked away, then nodded quickly. "They miss Jason. Just staying a few days." My voice was soft, but each word landed like a stone in his ears. "Where are they going to sleep? In the shed out back like I did?" He scoffed without thinking. "Come on, Mom. What kind of question is that? Of course not, they're not sleeping in the shed." But I had. For 5 years. The tears came then, relentless and hot, falling in heavy drops I couldn't wipe away fast enough. Seeing me cry, Carrie groaned and stamped his foot like a frustrated child. "Mom, please, don't do this now, okay? Just don't come back yet. Let me figure things out." Cold wind whipped at my legs, tossing dry leaves against my ankles. I stood there, clutching that worn-out suitcase, one foot inside a pair of tattered house slippers, the sole nearly worn through. Through my tears, I watched him walk away. His back grew smaller and smaller until it finally disappeared behind the apartment door. I stood there for a long moment. And then suddenly I stopped crying. I felt calm. Completely calm. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my phone. Dialed a number. When someone picked up, I said, "Yes. I've made my decision. I'm ready." As I ended the call, I took one last look at that so-called home. No trace of longing. Not a flicker of hesitation. Then I turned and walked away for good. I returned to the small southern town I had once left behind in my youth. Decades had passed. The dusty dirt roads had been replaced by smooth pavement. The streets were clean, the air tinged with the salty breeze that rolled in from the sea. I followed the path etched in my memory and found the old house. Its wooden door was worn and weather-stained. The roof sagged under crooked shingles and wild weeds had nearly swallowed the yard. This was the first home my husband and I ever built, right here on this patch of land. Back then we gave up everything for Carrie's future. Left our hometown and went to New York to scrub floors and deliver food, busting our backs to earn a life in the city. Never in my life did I think I'd make a full circle, right back to where it all began. I stood there, lost in thought, when a familiar voice snapped me out of it. "Well, I'll be damned. If it isn't Linda. What are you doing back here?" I turned and saw Martha Jenkins standing at the fence, arms crossed, a half-finished bag of sunflower seeds in her hand, a smug little grin tugging at her mouth. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. My scalp prickled. Of all the people to run into, it had to be her. Back in the day she was always competing with me over everything. Her mouth ran like a broken radio, never turning off. Even after I moved to the city, every time I came back for a wedding or a funeral, she'd find a way to get her jabs in. If she found out my own son had kicked me out, she'd have enough material to roast me for 3 years. I lowered my head and gave her a nod, just enough to count as a greeting. She clicked her tongue. "You still got your luggage with you? Don't tell me your son threw you out." That mouth. Still as sharp as ever. I clenched the handle of my suitcase and said nothing. She seemed disappointed I didn't bite. She shrugged and walked off. I stepped into the old house, poured myself a glass of cold water and gnawed on some stale bread. Then I got to work cleaning the yard. Mold on the floorboards. Rat droppings on the old stove. Suddenly I heard a racket outside. I opened the door and nearly jumped. A small crowd was gathered on the front step, some holding toolboxes, others carrying gardening shears or stacks of kitchen supplies. And right in the center was Martha, clutching a plastic bucket and looking as proud as a peacock. The moment she saw me, she hollered over her shoulder, "Told ya I wasn't lying. It's really her, Linda's back." She must have gotten kicked out by her son. The crowd erupted in chatter. My ears rang, my head swam. I nearly lost my balance. She really brought people here just to gawk at my shame? I glanced around the yard, wondering if there was a stick nearby I could use to chase them off. But before I could do anything, Martha strutted right in like she owned the place. She plopped her bucket down in the kitchen, peeled off her jacket and made herself at home. Within minutes I stood at the kitchen doorway, dumbfounded by what I saw. Someone was pulling weeds in the yard. Someone else was on a ladder cleaning the windows. Another was fixing the pipes. Someone was even replacing the busted bulb on the porch. The place buzzed with life and laughter. Everyone gave me a warm smile. I looked at them, then back at Martha. She bumped me with her elbow. "Well, you gonna just stand there or help me with this bucket? It's my own homemade fruit wine. Smells like heaven." My throat tightened. I blinked hard and managed to choke out, "Thank you." Even I couldn't miss it now. These people were here because of her. Every so often she'd shout out into the yard, "Jerry, quit slacking, I see you." I stared at her, confused. She shrugged, completely casual. "I'm the women's community coordinator now. These folks, they listen when I call." I blinked, then nodded, genuinely impressed. "You're incredible." She grinned like a cat who just caught a bird. Then she narrowed her eyes and asked, "All right, spill it. Why'd you really come back?" I looked her straight in the eye. "My son threw me out." She stared. I didn't flinch. They were the ones who'd done wrong. I had no reason to hide. After a pause, she jumped up and started pacing in a circle, muttering to herself. "I was just joking, I didn't think he'd actually do it. I thought you were just back for Thanksgiving." She looked me up and down. "Seriously? You came back looking like this?" Then without warning she grabbed my arm. "Come on, Linda. We're going back to set him straight. That boy needs a good talking to. Ungrateful little brat." I patted her hand gently. "What for? So I can go back to scrubbing dishes and waiting on them hand and foot? Oh, I'm done. I've finally figured it out." She stared at me for a moment. Then suddenly she smiled. "Welcome home." I looked at her and smiled back, deeply grateful. Life in the small town was quiet and simple. With a few weeks left before the school year started, I made good use of the time. I tilled the patch of land behind the house and planted vegetables. Then I stopped by the feed store in town and bought a few chicks and ducklings, setting up a little pen next to the old shed. "Once these chickens and ducks are ready for market, I'll pay you back every penny," I said seriously to Martha while scattering feed. She'd fronted the money for the seeds and the animals. She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, shut up. You don't owe me a thing. Remember that night I went into labor during the blizzard? You ran barefoot from outside town just to sit by my side, and you gave me blood. I'd be 6 feet under if it weren't for you." I nodded. "Fine. Then we'll call it even and forget about the interest." We both burst out laughing, the kind of deep belly laugh that shakes your ribs and leaves tears in your eyes. Just as our laughter faded, my phone rang. "Caller ID, Carrie." It was the first time he'd called in 3 months. I stared at the screen, surprised by how calm I felt. Martha took a few steps back to give me space, then promptly stepped right back in, pretending to feed the chickens with exaggerated innocence, her whole body straining to eavesdrop. I gave her a look inside, then tapped the speaker button. Carrie's voice came through, flat as ever. "Mom, where the hell have you been? If you're done playing around, come back already." Lynn's mom threw her back out doing aerobics, and now everything's dumped on me. "Seriously, you were way more useful than her. Lynn just lies on the couch like she's royalty. I come home from work and have to cook, clean, wait on her hand and foot." He hadn't changed a bit. Complaining right out the gate, no trace of concern. Not a single question about where I'd been these past 3 months. How I survived on $500. Whether I had a bed to sleep in. I kept my voice steady. "Carrie, it's been 3 months. You never thought to ask how I've been. There was a pause. Then a long sigh. Oh come on, don't be dramatic. You're clearly doing fine. Look, now's not the time to argue, just come back already. I could use the help. I cut him off, calm but firm. Carrie, I've only got two things to say. 1. I'm not coming back. 2. From this day forward, don't call me Mom. And with that I ended the call. A few seconds later he called again. I blocked the number. The silence that followed was the sweetest thing I'd heard in months. Like snow finally melting after a long, bitter winter. I turned to Martha, still faking innocence beside the chicken coop. You heard that, didn't you? Go ahead, get your laugh in. She scoffed, tilting her chin. What would I laugh at? That man's a complete jackass. You just had bad luck, that's all. Then her tone shifted. She grew quiet, sincere. So you're really planning to stay here? Just live your life? No more reaching out to him. She clicked her tongue. Honestly, you'd be better off without a son like that. At least then you'd qualify for low-income housing. I opened my mouth to respond, but a crisp male voice called from outside the gate. Excuse me, is Ms. Linda Walker home? My heart jumped. He'd finally arrived, the one I'd been waiting for. It was Mr. Harris, the retired principal from the town's elementary school. He'd actually called me back on my birthday week, asking if I'd consider returning to take on a role as the school's kitchen supervisor and dorm matron. I'd planned to announce it to the family that day, but they never gave me the chance to speak. Over the years, trying to keep up with Lynn's ever-changing dietary demands, I'd practically taught myself an entire degree in nutrition. Low-fat, high-protein, she insisted. So I watched YouTube videos, studied recipe books, tested dish after dish. Eventually, I started a little channel of my own, recording step-by-step videos of balanced, affordable meals. To my surprise, it gained a small following. Mr. Harris was one of those followers. The town's elementary school was a modest public institution. Teachers had to wear a dozen hats. Teaching, cooking, dorm duty, you name it. But Harris was no cook. Meals were so bad the kids flinched every time the lunch bell rang. They were shrinking before his eyes. Desperate, he scoured the internet for help and stumbled onto my Affordable Meals for Grandkids series. After that, he began sending me little photos and video clips from the school. Kids racing across the playground, tiny hands scribbling drawings and thank you notes. Each time I saw those sweet, toothy grins, something warm and achy would swell inside me. I started sending things back, school supplies, socks, homemade snacks, whatever I could spare. But that didn't last. One day while cleaning the kitchen, Lynn accidentally tapped my tablet and a video started playing. She exploded. Why are you posting this crap online? Don't you realize you could expose our address? Our private life. I tried to explain, it's just recipes. Shot in the little kitchen nook. No faces, no personal details. She sneered. Do you ever listen to a word I say? That phrase. She used it every time she wanted to shut me up. But not this time. This time I stood my ground. I didn't do anything wrong. She didn't argue. She just walked away. Later that evening she accidentally knocked my old tablet off the counter. The screen shattered. Total loss. A few days later, Carrie showed up with an old flip phone and said, "This one's simple. Less likely to break." After that, I had no way to update my videos. The channel slowly went quiet. When Mr. Harris, the school principal, found out, he made a point to visit in person. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "Linda, we really need you. Come join us as the kitchen supervisor and dorm matron." I hesitated. Part of me still wondered, if I left, who would cook for that family? Who would take care of them? Then one afternoon I stood in front of the frozen section at the grocery store, holding a discounted tray of creamy mushroom casserole. And suddenly it hit me. All my life I'd only ever been someone to someone else. Carrie's mother, Jason's grandma, Lynn's so-called maid. Not once had I asked myself, who am I? My name is Linda Walker. I still have a life to live. And I don't want to spend the rest of it tiptoeing around other people's moods. So I said yes. When I told Martha, her eyes bulged. You what? Harris, you dog. You just wrangled yourself another unpaid laborer, didn't you? Mr. Harris flushed bright red and waved his hands frantically. No, of course she'll be paid. $2,000 a month. Plus 3 meals a day. He paused, voice dropping slightly. I hope that's all right. I nodded. He exhaled with relief and clasped my hand. Thank you, Linda. We don't have much to offer, but those kids need someone to feed them. Martha stood nearby with her hands on her hips, sighing like she'd lost a long-running bet. I swear I need to go home and look this up, see whether Women's Affairs Coordinator ranks higher than dorm matron. I had just gotten the upper hand and now this. And just like that, I officially became the town elementary school's dorm matron. Martha handed me her niece's old smartphone and installed a new video editing app for me. I expanded the yard, built a proper chicken coop, and added dozens of new chicks. Each morning, I rose with the mist, fed the chickens, gathered eggs, and tended to the garden. At dawn and dusk, I cooked for the kids, meals they devoured down to the last bite. They lined up just to say thank you. Miss Linda, your food is so good. I'd wipe the sweat from my forehead and smile at them, full and proud. I used to cook like this back in that house too. I tried hard every single day. But Lynn always turned up her nose. This is just carbs, she'd say. No nutritional value at all. I'd explain, it has protein and veggies. It's balanced. She'd immediately snap, so now you're talking back to me? And Carrie, he always disappeared. No matter what, I was the one who had to apologize to keep the peace. But not anymore. Now I speak freely. I no longer analyze every word, no longer walk on eggshells. I rise with the sun and rest with the stars. It's a steady life. A free one. I thought that chapter of my life had finally closed. Until one afternoon, as I was editing the latest episode of Cafeteria Chronicles, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. It was Carrie. The moment I answered, his voice exploded. Mom, are you telling people I'm ungrateful? That we kicked you out? Do you know how hard I've worked to get ahead in my company? And now my boss, calls me out in front of everyone saying I have character issues. Can you not screw things up for me? Not a single apology. Even now, he didn't see anything wrong with what he'd done. I let out a sigh and spoke clearly, slowly. Carrie, I'm not your mother anymore. Haven't you figured out what that means? Don't call me again. I hung up, blocked him on the spot, and just like that, silence returned, clean, final. That heaviness in my chest melted away like spring thaw. When I looked up, Martha was crouching by the coop like a guilty cat, trying to sneak back without being noticed, only to meet my eyes head-on. I narrowed mine at her. Alright, spill it. Was it you? She fidgeted. I didn't mean to. I was just chatting with my niece. I had no idea your son's boss would actually listen to her. She paused, then suddenly perked up. Remember how proud you used to be? Bragging about Carrie getting into that big company? I was so jealous. But get this. My niece got into the same company. And it wasn't even hard. I gave her a genuine nod. She's impressive. Martha tossed her head back and beamed. Damn right she is. I created a new account. Every day I filmed short videos, snippets of my garden, the chicken coop, the meals I cooked. They were simple, honest, with a dash of grandma-style humor. Slowly but surely people started watching. The comments flooded in. This kitchen feels like a warm hug. Can you be my grandma, please? Soon they were sending recipe requests from all over the country. This spinach salad is for Wendy in New York. This creamy baked pumpkin? David from Chicago asked for it. And this golden crispy roast chicken? Helen from San Francisco says it's her favorite. One day, I accidentally caught Principal Harris in a video while he was trying to teach a third-grade class about area and perimeter. The kids looked like they were deciphering hieroglyphics, heads tilted, brows furrowed, totally lost. Most of them bombed the quiz. The comments section exploded. Draw 2 lines, one short, one long. Show them what length means, for heaven's sake. You know what? I'm coming over this weekend. And someone actually did. The next day, a young man showed up at the school out of breath, carrying a foldable teaching board. Thick brows, bright eyes, clear voice. Within minutes, he had every kid nodding along like they'd just discovered magic. Harris was so moved he grabbed a cleaver and marched to the backyard to butcher a chicken, shouting, "This deserves a celebration." I happened to capture the whole thing on video. Chalkboard lesson, chicken feathers and all. It went viral. When the earnings report came in, the 3 of us, Harris, Martha, and I, stared at my phone like we just hit the lottery. We sat around the kitchen table tossing around ideas for how to use the money. Harris was the first to dream big. If this could actually help the village become self-sufficient, Maybe our young folks wouldn't have to leave for the cities. And maybe the kids wouldn't have to grow up as left-behind children. I nodded as I scribbled in a little notebook, carefully jotting down every word. These were conversations far beyond the world I used to live in. But I was ready to learn, eager to catch up. What I didn't expect was Carrie showing up in person. That afternoon, I was sitting in the kitchen drafting the next day's lunch menu when a knock came at the door. I thought it was Martha dropping off eggs. But when I opened it, there stood Carrie and Lynn. Carrie rushed forward, grabbing my hand, his voice unusually eager. "Mom, I finally found you. Come back with us, okay?" I looked at him. It had been 2 years. His face looked tired, streaks of gray creeping into his hairline. From the moment I walked away with $500 in my pocket, he hadn't really looked for me. My past compromises came from love, not foolishness. I said nothing, simply slipped my hand out of his grasp. He hesitated, confusion flickering across his face. Then came the pout. "You're still mad? Come on, it's been so long." Lynn knows she was wrong now. He nudged Lynn, who lowered her head, mumbling like a scolded kitten. "Linda, I'm sorry. Please forgive me." It was the first time either of them had said, "I'm sorry." But by now I didn't need it. I nodded and replied calmly, "All right. I hear you." A look of relief washed over Carrie's face. He grabbed my arm again. "Great. Let's go home." One by one I pried his fingers off my arm. "I'm not going anywhere. This is my home." Carrie scratched his head, visibly irritated, eyes darting away. Then suddenly he shoved Lynn forward. She lunged at me, grabbing my hands and sobbing. The old me would have wrapped my arms around her. But now, I just stood there, letting her act, watching in silence as she fumbled through her performance. Carrie stared like he didn't recognize me, like he couldn't understand how I'd grown so calm, so cold. After a long pause, I sighed. "All right, out with it. What happened?" He exhaled like a mask had fallen off. "It's Jason. His grades aren't good enough to get into a decent college. We want to send him abroad." He paused again. I gave no reaction. He continued. "The tuition's expensive. We just can't cover it. So that's why they came. Not for love. Not for guilt. For money." Lynn piped up in her most dutiful daughter-in-law tone, the one I knew too well. "Mom, Jason's your favorite grandson." Carrie added, "Yeah, Mom, he's been asking about you a lot." I nodded and said lightly, "I see. So, you want me to go overseas with him? Cook his meals, do his laundry?" Lynn recoiled like I'd smeared something disgusting on her. "What are you talking about? Go with him? You wish. Then why were they here?" Carrie, sensing I wasn't budging, dropped the act altogether. "Mom, can you stop pretending you don't understand? Let's just be real, we need money. You've been making a lot from that video channel." I checked. I looked at him long and hard, like I was finally seeing every selfish thread that had stitched itself into him. He shrugged, his face souring. "I'll be honest then. I need 50 grand. "I don't have money," I said flatly. Their faces changed instantly. I pulled out my phone and opened the back-end dashboard. The account showed just a few $100s. They both gawked at the screen. I said calmly, "Every cent from that channel. I donated it to this school. We got new lights, fans, desks, even built a basketball court. That money isn't gone. It just changed form. Now it stays with me and these kids every day." Lynn's face flushed red in an instant. She burst into a tirade. I cut her off. "Lynn, you know exactly what I gave you over the years. Your wedding gift? 30,000. The ring in your house down payment? Me again. You wanted a bigger house and coaxed me into selling my home. I agreed. You made me sleep in a shed. I endured that too. I have no guilt toward you. But you don't get to stand in front of me and accuse me of anything." She clenched her teeth, voice rising to a shriek. "You have no right. Did you forget that damn mushroom casserole? I nearly died. You might not remember, but I do. I'll hold that grudge forever. One dish. One honest mistake. And she'd carried it like a blade for over a decade, stabbing me with it whenever she pleased. No matter what I gave, how much I sacrificed. All she remembered was that one bite." I laughed. And then I cried all at once. What level of cruelty was this? Carrie's eyes filled with tears. He looked like he was about to implode. "You have any idea how hard my life's been? I had less than my friends growing up. After I got married, they were buying houses outright, flying around the world. And you? All you ever gave me was help with a 3-bedroom down payment. Now you're finally doing well and you won't help me? Are you even my mother? Something twisted in my chest. This was the boy I'd raised, the boy I'd poured every last drop of effort into. The boy I gave up everything for. When he was little, I scrimped and saved to get him what he wanted. If other kids had it, I found a way to get it for him too. Martha used to tease me, "You're raising a rich boy on a poor woman's budget." I'd laugh and say, "That's what parents do, give their kids the best no matter what." I really believed he'd grow into a kind, decent, grateful man. But somehow he grew the other way. I looked him straight in the eye, my voice cold enough to freeze the air between us. "Carrie, remember the year you finally got your promotion? The company offered you a year-long field rotation in the West. Do that and you'd be on the fast track. You turned it down because the town was too remote. Then came the chance to move into business operations. You said the networking dinners were beneath you. So again you walked away. You didn't want this. You didn't want that. So you stayed in admin, sitting behind a desk, collecting your fixed paycheck, blaming the world for being unfair. You didn't want to work harder, but always said I didn't try hard enough. The only thing you've consistently done is stand behind your wife and plot against the woman who raised you." I stepped forward and firmly pushed them both toward the door. "Go. I told you already, I'm not your mother anymore." Carrie panicked and lunged toward me, wrapping his arms around my shoulders. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean any of that. Look, if you've already donated the money, fine. No problem. Just give me what you make next, okay?" I tried to shake him off, but he clung tighter. Then he shot Lynn a look and the two of them started dragging me toward the door. "Just come with us," he pleaded. "Lynn's making videos now too. We'll feature as a family. We'll make the money back in no time. You won't have to lift a finger." "Help!" I screamed. Carrie clapped a hand over my mouth. "Stop yelling. It's a small town, everyone's asleep. No one's going to hear you." But right then a voice thundered from outside. "Who says no one can hear her?" The gate burst open. A group of townspeople stormed in, carrying tools and flashlights. Martha was leading the charge, flanked by Principal Harris and a few strong farmhands. "Let go of Ms. Linda." Martha roared like a field commander. Carrie froze. Lynn screamed and tried to pull me out again, but Martha yanked her back with one sharp tug. Just like that, it was over. By the next day, Carrie and Lynn were infamous. Their faces were plastered across short video platforms, flooded with rage from thousands of users. People dug up everything, their address, their jobs, even the names of their bosses. Eventually, the pressure got too big to ignore. The company took the easy way out and fired them both, citing internal restructuring. On my 65th birthday, Principal Harris was up at dawn, rallying the kids to bake a surprise cake. I wasn't allowed near the kitchen. He ordered me to go water the herbs or something. The clattering of pots and pans made me nervous. When they finally rolled the cake out, I burst into tears at the sight of it. A fondant masterpiece shaped like a woven produce basket, filled with bright green veggies. In the center stood a tiny figure wearing an apron, smiling from ear to ear. It was me. Ms. Linda. We practiced that fondant cake for weeks. A chubby little boy beamed up at me, waiting for praise. With tears in my eyes, I handed out red envelopes to every child. They shrieked with joy, laughter bouncing off the walls like fireworks. Blessings came pouring in from all over the country. By then, the channel had grown so much I no longer worried about money. So I used the holiday break to take the kids on a field trip. A summer camp at the state university. Martha was giddy as a teenager. "Linda, I've never been so happy in my life." The children ran ahead, asking questions, pointing at every shiny building. Harris trailed behind, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "Can you believe this? We made it here." We wandered through a bustling market where the air smelled of crispy corn fritters. One of the vendors had dark skin and familiar eyes. He froze when he saw me, started to step forward, then stopped. I met his gaze, cool and steady. Then I turned and walked on. Martha studied my face, then let out a quiet breath. "You okay?" she whispered. I nodded. "Doesn't hurt anymore." With the morning sun lighting our path, we walked beneath golden trees, the gravel crunching softly under our feet. That little house with no lock. That cramped wooden bed. All the cold stares and quiet cruelty at dinner tables. Gone. They dissolved like mist in the light. I'd finally learned. The world is vast. And worth starting over for. And love. Love should never be something one person carries alone.